You must be Key's brother, Don.
Yes. Shall we take a seat and get the show on the road?
Of course, let's get started. So Don, what is your current living situation?
Well, right now I am living in an apartment with my beloved wife.
Do you have any children?
No, we do not. My wife and I decided not to have any children. But I have a niece and nephew, and they are like a daughter and son that I never had.
That's great. Who would you say is the primary caregiver in the house?
Well, my wife used to be the one to cook dinner and clean, but since she developed Alzheimer's, I have had to take on the role as the primary caregiver in the house.
Oh yes, Key told me that your wife has Alzheimer's. I am sorry to hear that. Do you have any support from your extended family members?
Well, my niece frequently checks up with me to see if I need any extra help with anything. And Key always calls and tries to help me as much as she can.
That's very nice. You seem to be very close to your family. Can you tell me about how you found out that your wife suffers from Alzheimer's?
The changes occurred very gradually at first. She was always independent. We didn't have kids, so she was working up until she was diagnosed. She continued working for a while after she was diagnosed because she was a workaholic. She was always on top of her game. She cook, clean and bring work home sometimes. Slowly that began to change. She would misplace things, like her keys and files, or forget that she was boiling something on the stove. She was not able to complete her work as efficiently and soon she began forgetting work shifts entirely. I didn't think much of it, just assumed she was tired and overworking herself. But one evening she decided she would go for a short walk around our block, but she didn't come home. A neighbor found her crying 2 blocks away from our home at a nearby marketplace. She was lost, she did not know where she was, and how to get home, and this was the market we go to regularly. This was very concerning, and the doctor sent her for some tests. That's when we discovered she was suffering from Alzheimer's.
How did her diagnosis affect the both of you?
Well, I retired sooner than I wanted to take care of my wife. She really struggles with simple daily activities. She's reached the late stage of dementia where she is no longer able to recognize things that were once familiar. At times she does not recognize me, let alone friends and family. She cannot remember where the bathroom is in our house most of the time. I have to make sure that I get her to the bathroom on time. I basically help her with all her personal care. She is no longer able to walk independently and needs assistance. I am thinking of hiring someone to help me now because taking care of her is getting difficult.
Have you noticed any changes in her personality?
I wish I could say no, but I have noticed that her behavior has changed immensely. She developed this aggression, which she never had before. She was always a happy-go-lucky type, but since the onset of Alzheimer's, that has changed. Sometimes I feel like I do not even know who she is, but I know deep down the woman I married is still there. It can be extremely difficult for the both of us, especially her.
How did you feel about having to retire early?
At first I was nervous because I could not remember a time when I was not working. I didn't know what to expect. I never really thought about retiring. I thought I would be working for a few more years at least. My employer mentioned that the government was thinking about extending the age of retirement because many people's well-being declines after forced retirement. So I thought I would be working until I could not hear the lunch bell. Ha ha ha. But I had to do what's best for my wife.
Do you miss working?
I do. I miss having lunch with my pals. I worked with some of those guys for over 35 years. Also, not having my usual income is hard to get used to. But I try not to think about that stuff too often. Taking care of my wife keeps me busy. I had best be going now. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Justin. It has been a while since I have socialized with someone outside the house.
Thank you for answering my questions.